concluded that more than 1 in 10 of his patients suffered harm as a result of his actions. 789 patients at Great Ormond Street were put under Yasser Jabbar's care over a period of around 5 years. The report, which was released in the past hour, found that 94 of them came into harm directly because of his actions, with 36 of them suffering severe harm. Well, let's bring in our correspondent, Emma Birchley. Emma, a really detailed internal report has just been published. Just explain what it actually shows.
Yes, so the actions of Yasser Jabbar have been scrutinised, in fact, by a group of senior surgeons from across the country. So they looked at those 789 children that he had treated between 2017 and 2022. And of that number, that total, 94 were found to have suffered harm. Now, 19 suffered mild harm, 39 moderate harm, and 36 of them suffered severe harm. And we know that of that total number, 333 of the children had had operations. And actually, the majority of the people who suffered harm had been surgical patients. So it may not have been the operation itself, it may have been decision-making, lack of timely intervention, and ineffective identification and management of complications. Now, we've heard an apology before, but now, following the publication of this report, the Chief Executive of Great Ormond Street Hospital, Matt Shaw, has once again given an apology to the families.
What I want to say to the families is there is no corporate cardboard apology here. What has happened to these children at this hospital is unacceptable, and it is awful. Yasser Jabbar's practice was completely unacceptable. When families come here, they are anxious, they are worried, they put their trust in Great Ormond Street, and in this case we have breached that trust in a way that's entirely unacceptable. There are reasons, but there are no excuses for what has happened. What I want families to know is we've taken this incredibly seriously. We have reviewed all of the Royal College recommendations and they are completed in full. I can genuinely say the department today is safer than it has ever been, but I'm deeply and profoundly sorry for all those children and families that have come to harm as a result.
Now, the Chief Executive also admitted that they could have acted sooner. He said there were no excuses, but he said that there were 3 reasons that this had happened. Now, the first of them, he said, was that hospitals tend to have standardised metrics that they check surgery against. For example, complaints or infections or return to theatre. Now, none of those metrics were flagged, so that was an issue. Secondly, very few surgeons do this kind of complicated, complex surgery, and that's the case not just here in the UK, but across the world. So there are no particular standards to measure against. And thirdly, this is something that had been picked up in a Royal College of Surgeons report earlier. The custom, practice and culture in the department was not strong enough in terms of collaborative working to potentially have prevented this from happening. And actually that Royal College of Surgeons report had made 122 recommendations, which we now find out have all been put in place. But the reality is that so many children have suffered. They've ended up in chronic pain, they've ended up with nerve damage, deformitives. One of those children is Bunty Stallam. Now, in October of 2024, we spoke to her father, Dean. He explained how his daughter was born with a rare bone disease that left her with a short-bowed left leg, that she'd had a number of operations from the age of 6 over a 15-month period. And you can just tell here from this clip just how frustrated he was.
It was all smiles and success, and I've lengthened her leg, it's great, it's longer than the other one for growth and this, and that was all a big major success. And then out of the blue, it's like, no, it hasn't worked. He was trying to save a leg that couldn't be saved. He took it upon himself to be the almighty saviour of the leg, as it were, and it proves that they were all unnecessary because they all failed. Not one operation was of any benefit to Bunty whatsoever.
No complaints have been made to the police so far. The Metropolitan Police saying that they will study this report, and it may be that some families do now come forward. It's just important to note, finally, that Jabbar now lives abroad and he has lost his licence to practice medicine in the UK.
Emma, thank you very much for that. Well, joining me now is Julia Reynolds, partner at Lee Day, the legal team representing some of the victims. Good to talk to you today, Julia. So what legal grounds do those affected have to take action here?
They do have an opportunity to bring a civil claim, and that is really a case that they can pursue for clinical negligence, and their liberty to do that if they can establish a case that the care has been negligent and that has caused injury. the families I act for have received individual investigation reports, but at this stage, even though some of those reports show a raft of failings and some certainly do show severe harm, we're yet to receive any admissions on those cases at this stage.
So you don't know whether or not you will be pursuing legal action for these families, is that right?
Yes, we will.
We heard a little bit from one family, Bunty. I don't know whether you're representing her family, but the impact that this has had on the families cannot be underestimated, can it?
You're absolutely right there. I think that when families went to have treatment at somewhere like Great Ormond Street, which is a nationally and internationally renowned centre of excellence, they really thought they were getting their children the very best of care. And although ultimately some families will say they may have had some concerns, they were always very much reassured that all was well. And therefore, to actually find out years down the line that actually the care was anything but, I think that has been really devastating for a lot of families.
What did you make of some elements of the report? We heard Emma just explaining there that one of the reasons that perhaps that this wasn't picked up on was the fact that the surgery is unusual and complex that he was carrying out. So there aren't many benchmarks to measure it against.
Yes. I guess I do have some concerns around that. So I think there are measures in place in many trusts, like multidisciplinary team meetings, where cases are reviewed and treatment paths are formed. Great Ormond Street doesn't have a trauma centre, so it's not a case of emergency surgery. It's mostly elective planned surgery. So I believe that if they're undertaking complex surgeries, there's an opportunity to sit down with colleagues, have a multidisciplinary approach, and really reflect on the treatment path. Many of the cases that I've seen, the incorrect clinical decision was made regarding what was the option. So there are cases where Yasser Jabbar embarked on complex surgery and didn't really explore non-surgical options, or indeed sometimes a wait and see approach, and also perhaps less complex surgery. So I feel that if there had been a greater degree of multidisciplinary team planning on these cases, he wouldn't have set off on and embarked on a treatment path that was really not the best option.
Questions too for Great Ormond Street about how they handled it when people came forward as well, in terms of whistleblowers, and a fulsome apology from the hospital today. That is presumably welcomed by the families.
I think it is welcomed by the families, and it's important that there is accountability and the trust apologise in these sorts of cases. But I have greater concerns about the fact that Yasser Jabbar was employed at Great Ormond Street from 2017. They say the concerns didn't really merit more detailed investigation until 2022. And my question would be that if you've got a surgeon with nearly a 12% rate of harm, I struggle to believe that those concerns only really started to be raised in 2022. I suspect there was harm being done between 2017 and 2022. But for perhaps there are reasons that we need to examine more closely. Why were colleagues and why were patients not raising complaints? Were they perhaps raising informal concerns and those concerns were being dismissed? And that's something that I commonly see when healthcare is reviewed. You hear that patients' voices, they feel unheard.
Just a final very quick question. I mean, can the families chase him criminally, legally, now that he is no longer in the UK?
So there is opportunity for criminal prosecutions for both individual doctors and against trusts. The negligence has to be really significant, that it warrants a criminal prosecution over and above a civil. I think that it is really a matter for the police and CPS to look at to decide whether that's something that they would want to pursue or not. Okay. It does happen, but it's rare.
OK, Julia Reynolds from Lead Day Solicitors. Very good to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.